This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Ben Turney, the CEO of Kavango Resources, is joining us today. Ben, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. A little bit early in the morning, but I'm all good. How are you, Mark?
Indeed. Yes, no, I'm good. Thank you, Ben. So there's been a few internal changes, hasn't there, at Kavango? There's been an appointment of some senior personnel. So there's quite a few, three new people, isn't there? So that's quite a large number. What's going on?
Well, when I came into the company, obviously this was back in April 2020, originally as a consultant. Kavango obviously hadn't had the best time in the market since listing in 2018. The directors, they struggled a bit getting the message out there, and as a result of that, they weren't really able to use this market what it's best for, which is to raise funds. Obviously, conditions were very difficult in 2018 and 2019 as well, which also didn't help. But the share price was down at 0.8 pence, and that £400,000 placing that went in, I mean, that was really sort of a bailout placing at that stage. It was a turnaround, bit of a gamble. There wasn't much appetite for the stock, and of course the company didn't have very much money. So over the years, Kavango has been somewhat cash strapped, as a lot of startup companies are. But of course, we've got extremely ambitious projects. Part of Kavango's pitch has always been the world-class nature of the projects that we've put together, the portfolio we've put together in Botswana. So over the last 6 months, since I've been a director and since I've been acting as CEO since June, I've been very keen that we scale the business up and bring in as much talent, new talent into the business as we can. Now, there was a lot that's needed improving in Kavango. Obviously, as a result of sort of not having that much in terms of working capital to work with, that restricted the company both in terms of the types of people that it could recruit and also sort of how many people it could recruit as well. And I'm really delighted with the news that we put out a couple of days ago, which just confirmed the new appointments that we've made over recent months. So we started off with Tips Ngwasani. Now, Tips is the most recent hire. He joined us at the start of August. He's the former founding CEO of the Botswana Geological Institute, having worked at the Botswana Geological Survey for pretty much all of his career. He's a trained geophysicist, and I don't think there are many people in Botswana who have as much in-depth knowledge and understanding of the country's geology as he does. But also because of the nature of the work that he's done in the past, he's an organisational man as well. So he's a fantastic leader for us to have on the ground. He's very proud about Botswana. He's very motivated, very determined that Kavango makes a big impact in the country. So we're delighted to have Tips with us. And I hope at some point, Mark will be able to do an interview with Tips.
Indeed. Yes, it'd be nice to meet him.
So then there's John. John's great. So I was introduced to John at the start of the year. He's really quite a character. He's had a fantastic career across Africa. He actually came up to see us in England in May. We brought him up here. He did his 10 days quarantine. He's a British national, but he's lived his whole life in Zambia. So he flew up from Zambia, did the 10 days quarantine, spent 4 nights with us. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? 5 days with us, I should say. And we had, just got to know each other a lot over that time. We talked a lot about Kavango's strategy, the portfolio, really sort of understood a lot about John. And what was clear is that, he's very much sold into the vision of Cav. He's the sort of guy that in this market space, skills, exploration skills and exploration experience are commanding a high premium at the moment, obviously with metal prices doing what they're doing. But what we really sold John into was the vision of the company. So he joined us back in May initially as a consultant, and he's now our consulting geologist. So basically what that means is that John's helping both oversee and implement our strategy on the ground in Botswana. So he's been on the ground now there since early June. He's obviously on rotation, so he switches between 1 week in Zambia and then 3 weeks back in Botswana. But he's made a huge difference to the company already. I mean, he's really dragged us into the 21st century in terms of our exploration methods and the improvements on the ground. So he doesn't take prisoners. He moves very quickly. Great guy to work with, very committed to the team, very committed to ensuring that all of our people are properly looked after as well. So, we've looked to improve equipment, we're improving working practices, and John's already been implementing training programs as well. So the impact that John's had over the last 3 months has been a total transformation for our exploration activities on the ground. And then finally, there's Jeremy. Jeremy is turning out to be a bit of a godsend. Jeremy's a very experienced geophysicist. Obviously, Hilary Gumbo, our co-founder, he's been the main inspiration behind our geophysical strategy. But obviously, Hilary's been working on his own. Now, I was introduced to Jeremy at the start of this year. And from about March onwards, he started working with us on a consulting basis. He's introduced us to many of his contacts. And one of the things that's really interesting about Jeremy, apart from the fact that he's had as successful a career as he's had, he's also been, he's worked in Botswana a lot, and he also worked a lot on the KSZ. So we published a recent interview with Jeremy where he was able to present some of what he could see 20 years ago when he was working on the KSZ, and how modern technology has advanced dramatically since that period. And he's now able to view a number of our targets in a very different way. So Jeremy's currently conducting a geophysical review for us. And today, Mark, we're going to look at some of the modelling that Hilary has done. But Jeremy's also providing for us some updated models as well. So we'll be putting those out into the public domain once the geophysical review is out of the way, which will also help to put into context what we've discovered so far in the current drill campaign, which I hope you're going to ask me about very soon. And obviously how that's going to dictate our future exploration strategy. So with these three guys, yeah, we've really significantly increased both our commercial presence in Botswana, our operational presence in Botswana, and of course our technical competency, our technical skills. We've now got a really fantastic team all pulling together, working really well together, and it's very, very exciting.
Good. Yes, it sounds like you're definitely building the internal team there and building out Kavango. But yes, let's move on to what's actually happening on the ground, the more exciting stuff of exploration. And of course, the RNS did cover as well. You've updated the geophysical model of Target Area B, and you're just about to finish completing Target Area A before you move on to drill Target Area B and the giant red spot as well, which is the exciting part of the RNS. So yeah, you've got a picture up here. Is that some of the core from Target?
Yes, I think probably what we should start with is some of the core that we found from the current drill hole. Now, the reason that this is important, Mark, is that our primary exploration target was previously still remains the Karoo age gabbros. So we've done a lot of work on modelling those. They were closer to surface, or they are closer to surface. Mike Moles and Hilary's original vision for the KSZ was to explore the Karoo because it was felt it was sort of within range of modern remote sensing technology to enable us to find drill targets for us to go out and drill. And of course, our drill up at Target Area B is still very much dictated by that strategy. But what happened with this latest hole, we got through down to our target Karoo age gabbros. We went through the other side of those at around about 580 meters, similar to where we'd hit previously. And the model wasn't quite fitting what we were seeing in terms of the geology. Now, at this point in the hole, we were faced with what was quite a big decision. We hadn't by that stage encountered the source of the large magnetic anomaly that's in the area. So there was clearly something that was down there that was giving off this very strong, powerful signal, but we hadn't found it yet in the hole. So we took the decision to press on. We went for the Proterozoic. Now, there was, some dissent within the board about this, sort of Mike and Michael, they weren't so sure whether or not we should do this. They felt it was a bit of a gamble. But what we had was the geophysicists who'd worked on the project. So that obviously includes Hilary and includes Jeremy, plus also the other geophysicist consultants that we've used to help advise us previously. They were all saying the same thing. They all said to us, look, you haven't found the source of the magnetics. You have a secure hole at this stage. You've come this far. Push on to the Proterozoic. Let's get down there. Let's get some rock samples. Let's see what the source of this magnetic anomaly is, because that will help us augment our future modelling so that we can obviously improve what we already have. So we did eventually sort of unanimously, and it was a unanimous decision in the end after quite a lot of discussion. We had a unanimous decision to push down to the Proterozoic. And Hilary's model of the Proterozoic suggested it was 650 meters. Now, we hadn't put that in the public domain previously because, to be perfectly frank, we didn't have a huge amount of confidence in it. We felt that the interpretation might be wrong simply because the Proterozoic was so much shallower than has previously been encountered in the KSZ or in this area of the KSZ. Previous drillings encountered the Proterozoic at around about 900 meters or so. So it was a bit of a risk at this stage, but I've got to say, Hilary turned out to be absolutely spot on, and we hit the Proterozoic at 651 meters. But not only that, we encountered the type of rocks that you're looking at the moment. Now, obviously, we've got to do full sweep assay testing on all of this. So at the moment, we can't say definitively what we're looking at, but there are clear visible signs that certainly for us, they look like really interesting exploration leads in future. So what we're looking at here is a sample of core that had broken off, so it's available in the hand. So this hasn't been cut, this is actually snapped. But you can see within this rock, this sort of mafic / ultra mafic looking rock, the sort of very black rocks, but it's also that are very clearly altered as well. You can see that green in there that suggests that when these rocks were in a fluid state as magma, there was a lot that was happening within the system geochemically. Now, this is what we're going to do the assay testing for, to understand more about exactly the nature of those geochemical changes. But we also saw, or can see, visible signs of chalcopyrite. Now, the reason that that's significant for us is that chalcopyrite is copper sulfide. So that tells us already that the rocks we're looking at, and this part of the system, this part of the Proterozoic, not only were the conditions right for the formation of metal sulfide bodies, but metal sulfide actually did form because we can see this chalcopyrite. Now, at this stage, it's fairly disseminated, so it's spread throughout the hole. So we don't believe we've, at this stage, got a commercial nickel deposit. Obviously, we've got to do the assay testing still to find out more. So it is fairly dispersed, but the point is that we're looking for proof of concept here. And as far as that goes, it looks like this drill campaign will be a success.
Okay, so it's too early to say that you've found the source of the mag at the moment. This has got to be
This is the source. This is the source of the magnetic. Sorry, I should have made that.
It is okay.
So we have what's called a magnetic susceptibility reader, which is a handheld device that you can use to test the core. And we've got huge spikes pretty much from the top of the system and through certain zones as well that we've written about in the RNS. So the Proterozoic is the source of the magnetics.
Okay.
So what I can then do, Mark, is this is a presentation that I gave recently, but what we're looking at here is Hillary's current version of the Proterozoic gabbros across the Hukunsi section of the KSZ. Now, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor on this, but what you see here is the red outline of this box. These were the two TDEM surveys that we ran over the target that we're drilling at the moment. So if you imagine this rectangle divided into two, that was the location of the two TDEM surveys. The magnetic anomaly that we're drilling at the moment is this peak here. So this is the Proterozoic gabbro coming much closer to surface, which Hillary predicted would be at 650 meters. Again, we weren't so confident in this at this stage, but it's turned out to be absolutely spot on. Now, that's significant for a number of reasons. Is that, first of all, it gives us confidence that we've mapped the Proterozoic correctly and the outline of it, but it also gives us a degree of confidence that these highs that we see in the magnetics, which are coming closer to surface in these types of areas, we've got much more confidence that these actually, they look like these could be exploration targets for us. Now, quite what that's going to mean in the long term, we've got a lot more work to do on this, but as a starting off point and sort of putting through the next phase of our exploration strategy, we've got to obviously clearly, we've got a good foundation to work on. Now, in terms of sort of how deep these formations go, this is where the model can be sort of a bit visually misleading. So at this stage, it's very difficult to predict exactly where the depth is, because if you imagine the remote sensing technology we're using, it's a top-down view. So we're obviously taking readings from the surface and looking down. At this stage, we can't with any confidence say how deep the system is. And so you can see where it sort of spreads out in either direction. We haven't got evidence to confirm that yet. That's just sort of the way that the modeling software presents sort of a visual depiction of where the end is, because obviously, as with any software, there has to be an end. Any software depiction has to be an end somewhere. So we obviously need to do a lot more work around that, and the drill core that we're extracting from this hole will hopefully guide us on that, on sort of helping get a more accurate idea of the depths. But we're also going to be doing downhole EM. So the downhole EM is a bit more challenging because Kaslotter's spectral geophysics winch only goes down to 780 meters. So we're looking at a solution that will enable us to get to the bottom of the hole, which stopped at 1,000 meters as we announced it happened over Wednesday night. Now, what's happening next is the exciting bit. So as you can see on this model, this area here that I'm highlighting to the north, so to the left of the diagram, just underneath the word gabbro and stripped, is the Great Red Spot. So this is a huge magnetic anomaly. It's been the subject of a lot of exploration in the past and in one of the deepest holes that was ever drilled in the Kalahari Suture Zone. And our target area is just underneath these TDEM surveys that we ran to the north. And you can see according to our model, you have this sort of bulbous sort of element of the Proterozoic is sort of pushing its way to surface. And we believe that this is actually the source of the magnetic anomaly in the Great Red Spot. Now, what we've done is we've now sort of started to look at new target areas. So again, here is the Great Red Spot, and this is some of the airborne data that we're looking at. And what you can clearly see is that the spot itself, just looking at it from this view, appears to have this sort of very clearly defined shape with a very clearly defined center. And the previous hole that was drilled here, GRS1, was pretty much put right through the middle of this, which Jeremy was responsible for siting 20 years ago. Now, the technology they had available to them at the time, you can see why they made that decision. But what's very interesting about this, I'll just skip along to another slide, is Jeremy's now done some inversion modelling using new technology and the data that we've provided for him, which is a combination of historic data and data that we've gathered in the field. And what Jeremy's model's confirmed, which is aligned very much with Hillary's model, is that to the northern edge of the Great Red Spot, you see this sort of this rise in the magnetic reading, which appears to be coming much closer to surface. Now, what's significant about that for us is what we're looking at here now is Hillary's model, Hillary's latest model, which again, you can see there's the center of the Great Red Spot. To the right is north. There's target B, that 8,200 Siemens target that we're going to be drilling. But the magnetic peak of this anomaly appears to be towards the northern edge of the Great Red Spot. So our plan now is we're going to drill two holes here. We're first of all going to drill a geological hole deep into the Great Red Spot. First of all, to make contact with the magnetic anomaly, which we think is Karoo. So we think it's Karoo that's come up through the Proterozoic, using the Proterozoic dikes as channels for the Karoo age magma. But our goal then is to push deeper into the Proterozoic, deeper into the Karoo, this is our model of the Karoo here. So in through the shallow light green, and then deeper into the system to see the contact point between the Karoo and the Proterozoic. So obviously we want to understand much more about the geology of this area, especially after what we've now encountered with these rocks in the Proterozoic in target area A. These are two very distinct geological systems, so they're apart from each other. They're not directly connected. But it seems like a decent exploration lead that, we should certainly pursue and go deeper into the Proterozoic. But of course, what we're really interested in is then once we've got that geological hole, which will give us we hope, a good control over drilling in this area, we're then going to go for this conductive anomaly, this target B, this 8,200 Siemens reading, which is sitting right on the edge of the magnetic, or the source of the magnetic high. Quite what this is going to be, we don't know yet. Our expectation is that this is sitting just outside the gabbro. So, we're looking, and actually sort of slightly goes into the gabbro as well. So that could be, sort of very interesting from a technical point of view. But obviously at this stage, until we actually drill this, we won't know.
Okay. When you say geological hole, is that different from an exploration drill hole, or?
Yeah, so a geological hole, the main purpose of it is just to extract core, so you understand the geology. So at this stage, it's not it's obviously an exploration hole, but we're not looking to make a discovery with a geological hole. What we need is that core data to help obviously dictate our future exploration strategy, but also to help us with our geological models. Obviously, you can get lucky with these things sometimes, but the purpose of a hole like this is just to help educate us both for the modeling, future modeling, but also to understand the geology, because until you've got those core samples up, it's all educated guesswork at this stage. So that's why we need the core samples. The hole that we're going to drill for target area B, again, that's still proof of concept. So we're not sort of expecting necessarily to make a discovery here, but we have got a very interesting looking target. So again, core samples are the most important thing at this stage, and for us to understand what the source of this TDEM anomaly is.
Okay, good. Well, your geological models are very detailed, Ben. Now it's about actually going to prove it up, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, look, at this stage, the Great Red Spot's only ever had one deep hole put into it. Mm-hmm. The holes to the left are the shallower holes that Kavango drilled back in 2019 to understand a bit more about the Karoo. So we had some slight intercepts of Karoo age gabbros in sills. They were very thin at this stage, but when we did this drilling back in 2019, we didn't have this model that we have now. And this is why we've switched our attention from the southern section to the much more interesting looking northern section of the Great Red Spot.
And when will you be drilling here then? This will be after you finished at target area A.
We're mobilising now, so it's obviously Friday. I don't know exactly when the drill will commence, but based on sort of how quickly Equity Drilling and Mindea operate, I'd hope by sort of early to mid next week would be my best guess.
Okay. And is there some results then due from target area A at some point as well?
Yeah, so what we're doing at the moment is we're cutting the cores. We've obviously got a lot of core to cut. We then need to select samples to send off for lab testing. It's a bit of a complicated job at the moment, simply because we've got so much interesting looking core. So we're going to have to, decide sort of how much of that we send off, because there is a cost consideration. We were originally going to wait until we'd finished drilling at target area B and send both the A cores and the B cores off in one go. We've changed that plan now, because that was going to be a cost saving, but given what we've encountered now in target area A, we do feel we need to get those results in much quicker now. So we're accelerating that part of the plan. In terms of how long it will take, I don't know. I mean, we should have the cores cut hopefully by the end of the week after next. It's quite a big job to get all of this done. We'll then ship it off to South Africa, to the labs over there, and then we've just got to wait for them to come back to us with results.
Okay. I know you mentioned when you saw the core, you mentioned metal sulfides. Can you just explain what they are? They're like Pathfinder elements, is that right?
No. This is actually the exploration target. So when the magma came to surface, the way that metal sulfide bodies form in these types of systems is sulfur somehow needs to be introduced to the system. So that's either through country rock or things like coal-bearing shales. So what happens is, as the magma goes through and brings either this country rock in, which contains sulfur, or the coal, the sulfur obviously, the coal, let's say, melts within the magmatic mix. And what then happens is the sulfur within the coal binds together with the metallic elements to form these heavier, immiscible metal sulfide liquids that sink to the bottom. So what we have evidence of is that process occurred that created the metal sulfides. And because we've encountered metal sulfides throughout the hole, we also appear to have evidence that this sort of sinking also occurred. So our expectation is that somewhere within the system, we think we've got an indicator at this stage that these metal sulfides have both formed. And what we now need to do is to see what we can do to find pools of those metal sulfides, because those would be modern ore deposits.
Right. Okay. Yes, I understand. Okay. And how long is the drilling program going to last at target area B? Do you have an idea of the timescale?
Yeah, so look, I would imagine double what we've done now. So we're drilling two very similar holes at target area B. So I think we'll do another 1,000-meter or 900-meter hole at the geological hole, and then we'll do give or take about a 550 to 600-meter hole targeting the conductor. So we started drilling, I think it was in July. It's now obviously mid-September. So I'd probably give it about another eight weeks or so.
8 weeks or so. Okay. Is it worth touching on a couple of the other projects in Kavango's portfolio? You think you mentioned in a previous interview that something interesting was happening at Ditau.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I need to nip this one in the bud a little bit, because I know that there's been some speculation and we fielded some questions. So just to be clear to everybody, I mean, whenever we have anything that's price sensitive, we're going to announce that. I'm not going to sort of start giving hints that anything major is about to happen. But we have got an interesting lead down at Ditau. So I've pulled up the map here in front of us. Can you see that okay, Mark?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
So I'll give a bit of background first. So in Botswana, you can have overlapping prospecting licenses for different types of commodity. So at Ditau and across actually all of our licenses, we've got prospecting licenses to explore for base metals. You can also in Botswana, because it's a very sort of established diamond producing region, you have diamond exploration licenses that can overlap the base metal licenses, and they can be run by completely different companies. In fact, it's very common that they are run by completely different companies, because obviously exploring for diamonds is a very, very different discipline to looking for base metals, as Kavango is. So over our Ditau license, there's another extremely large, internationally known firm that has the diamond licenses over this area. Now, what we found very recently is when we came to do a site visit down to Ditau. Obviously, our focus has been up in the Copper Belt and in the KSZ, but we obviously need to keep things moving along at Ditau. And we found evidence, 2 caps, that the diamond prospecting license operator has actually been drilling in this area. And what's really caught our attention is that there's a cap of a hole, an exploration hole, that's gone down to 180 meters right over our target I-10, which is one of our high priority targets. Now, if you look at this magnetic map, and I'm highlighting over it just here with my cursor, you can see this sort of very circular formation. And if you show this to a geologist or a geophysicist, a lot of them will say, oh, well, that looks like a kimberlite. And a kimberlite obviously is sort of the host body, these circular pipes that go down quite deep that contain diamonds. So that could be a kimberlite. Now, we've obviously done surveying work over this. We've seen some interesting readings from the orientation work we did earlier this year, and we talked about having drill targets in Ditau. And I-10 is one of our priority targets based on what we've seen so far. Now, what's really caught our interest is the fact that the company that has the diamond prospecting license has drilled this target down to a depth of about 180 meters, and they've abandoned it. Now, what that tells us, or what it suggests, is that whatever's down there is not a kimberlite. Now, we've been in touch with this company to see if we could find out any information from them. They understandably don't really want to share it with us. They're a very large firm, and that's within their rights. They don't owe us anything, and there's no legal obligation or responsibility. But the fact that they've gone and drilled this hole, they've not found, it appears that they've not found what they were looking for, simply because they've abandoned the hole, and they've put this big concrete cap on it, which marks where the hole is, as you're required to do when you close off one of these holes to aid future exploration. And it appears that they've not hit what they were looking for. So obviously they were looking for kimberlite, to look for diamonds. We, on the other hand, are looking for any evidence of base metals and also rare earth elements as well. And so from our point of view, the fact that this is now being drilled, it's not a kimberlite, based on the fact that this hole has been abandoned. It says to us that this is now a priority exploration lead for us to follow up. So we're thinking about what our plans will be. And as I did say in the announcement, in the interview the other day, and I should have given more context at the time, but it wasn't really the opportunity to do that. We're going to be putting together an exploration plan for Ditau, which is obviously already in the public domain, but we now obviously need to think very clearly about what we're going to do about this I-10 target. We've got a few ideas that are kicking around, and as soon as we've got some of those ideas have crystallized and turned into something more substantial, we'll be putting an operational update out about next steps at Ditau.
Okay. But it'll be a little while. You've got to finish what you're doing at the KSZ first, have you?
Yeah. So, and look, one of the possible options open to us is that we could use this diamond drill rig and take it down to Ditau. I mean, we're obviously, the Ditau is part of the KSZ's environmental management plan, so it's part of the same EMP, and that's one of the options that we're thinking about at the moment, is that we might even go down and drill this target, given that we have the rig not too far away from that. Now, that might lead shareholders to ask, well, what are you going to do about the Kalahari Copper Belt? As everyone knows, we're still waiting for our EMP in the Copper Belt, but also what we need in the Copper Belt, we think, is probably more of a multi-purpose rig, because we're looking to do both diamond and RC drilling up there, and the rig that we have in the KSZ at the moment, that's just a diamond rig. So we're weighing up all of the options that are open to us at the moment, but I mean, the key message for everybody is that we want to go out and drill our targets as soon as we can.
Okay, and I guess as well that you'll be forward planning as you expect the drilling to complete at the KSZ to perhaps mobilise to Ditau, and of course with the KCB, I know you are kind of waiting for the EMP. But are you doing as much forward planning as you can, so there's as little, let's say, downtime or gap between activities?
Yeah, exactly. So the complication, of course, in Botswana is the rainy season, which is in December. So if we can, it would be great if we could get this rig down to Ditau, if that's possible, once the KSZ drilling is finalised. But obviously we've got more work that we need to do to just confirm that this is definitely a viable drill target for us. I mean, what we don't want to do is just start going and randomly poking holes in the ground. So there's some ground exploration that we need to do as well, but we think we have the time to do that with how long it's going to take to finish drilling the current targets in target area B.
Okay. And just on the KCB, do you have any idea how long it will take to get the EMP, or really are you just waiting?
we're in the hands of the department on this. The COVID situation was fairly bad in Botswana over the summer, so a backlog has built up, an administrative backlog. We've had verbal indications that everything is fine. We're in the queue. We've just got to wait. So at this stage, I mean, we'd hope to have it in August. It's now obviously mid-late September. We just have to wait. As soon as it's approved, we'll put an announcement immediately out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ben Turney, CEO of Kavango Resources, showing us some 3D modelling there of the KSZ. And as the target area A is finishing and you're moving on to the Great Red Spot, look forward to seeing what the results, or what the exploration shows you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.